Now, I'm hoping you could see this. Okay, here we go. Okay, so today we are going to, okay. Okay, so today's presentation is on writing essays to make your case. So there's a lot of strategy and details and subtlety to this. Hopefully, I'm going to successfully share some of my insights based on working with students, reading student essays, working for the University of Michigan, and many, many years of success I've had with students with their application in college advice. So we have a lot to cover today. Just to take a step back for a moment to place this in perspective, um, Francis has organized 16 webinars, so we're in the fifth one. It covers every aspect. I'm going to present the first five, so this is the last one of the first five, and then I'm going to come back um, at the very end. The very last one, the 16th, is on financial aid, and that's has historically been one of the most popular, because I go into a lot of important details about that important element to the process, but it often goes overlooked. But money obviously plays a factor. And we'll speak about how to get the most money and how it works and how it affects admissions. Those are questions that many parents have, and hopefully we'll answer them all. So the next one after this is we'll have a few lined up with actual students talking about their experiences. And that's the financial aid webinar. So mark your calendars. This is a very helpful webinar. June 5th. June 5th. Okay. So I want to take a big picture view of the admissions process. So there's certain data points that the admissions office sees, right? They don't get to meet you in person. There are some schools that interview, but it's a relatively minor part. So it's basically what you communicate through the Common App, and of course what goes on in the classroom. The transcript will be sent by the school, and they'll see the scores and letters of recommendation. So let me just kind of emphasize this part here. So today, we've spoken about some of these before. So I'm not going to cover much of what I said before, but today we're really going to focus on what goes on outside the classroom, these guys. I will touch on the letters of recommendation as well. But today, mostly we're going to focus on the essays. By the way, I've said this in past presentations, but it helps me a lot when I get questions in chat. It helps kind of like center me, and also see sometimes I gloss over something where it's not clear, or I can't cover everything. So if you have a question, this is the value of having it interactive. So I do want to emphasize that. Please chat a question. And at the end, I'll open it up. People can actually ask a question. I'd love to hear directly from parents and students. Okay, so this all goes through the Common App. Um, you can log into it at any time. On August 1st, it renews, but all the information you put in will be automatically forwarded. So it's never too early to start. I'm assuming most parents listening and students are juniors, but if there are sophomores and first year students, you're more than welcome. And I think it's a very good idea to you can't start this process too soon. So it really helps to just become aware of it. So this is the channel. Again, Common App is the channel to um, convey, to communicate all this information that's used to evaluate students. Okay, for parents, you can create your own account, um, just to see what's out there. So they do welcome that. So when you log into commonapp.org, you choose. I'll show you actually the steps at some slide in the future, but you can create an own account, and you can see exactly what the student sees. Okay, so what is the purpose of the essays and extracurricular activities? So they want to know it's more than just academics. Schools, colleges are interested in learning about the entire student. So it's about building a community, and they want students that fit into their culture. They want students that will thrive in their culture. And every school is different. So it's very important for the student to realize and recognize that that admissions is a two-way process. The student is learning about the school, and the school is learning about the student. If there's any one philosophy that I am most passionate about, it's that process, that the student should choose the school where they feel they will be the happiest. If that's the case and it's genuine, there's a high likelihood that the school will see the same thing and the student will get in. So that's where success happens. So that's what a lot of what I talk about is this process of students learning about the school through visiting the campus, YouTube videos of students showing their a day in the life. And I'm going to share more documents, and at the end, I'm going to share a lot of links. And the link that I find most helpful is the one about resources. How do you find out about schools? And actually, some of the slides actually today will actually talk about that as well. So before I get into the essays, let me just talk about this kind of like global picture, because you can't really understand or succeed, I should say, in the essays and the activities and all the other parts without seeing how the admissions office looks at students. It's not a typical process. And parents and students are often going for this for the first time. And this is where the success comes from, is understanding the other side, the college admission side. So one of the first things that admissions officer would say is this statement here, which encapsulates a lot. They're not looking for necessarily for a well-rounded student. They want the well-rounded class. And what that means is they want students that have different strengths, because that makes the community better. If everyone is well-rounded without one passion, without any particular passions, that would not be as effective. So that's a big part of this process. Of course, you can't make something up at this point. You have to be genuine. And that genuine quality, that's first and foremost what colleges want to see through the essays, through the activities. What have you done? Who are you? This is a difficult thing for a lot of young people, 17-year-olds, to come up with. I mean, it's a soul searching. And some students, it's more natural than others. But the bottom line is you have to produce this for success. So this is a process. For some students, it could take longer than others. I do suggest starting early, because it can be a challenge. So again, the community that they want to build is composed of different types of students, different passions, athletes, artists, activists, academics. They build a community, diversity. And they use the holistic review. Holistic meaning that everything is factored in. It's not one dimension. It's multidimensional. It's not just your grades. And the other part of the holistic review, which certainly would be true in all cases, is the fit. Do you fit into to their campus? Maybe they have many, for one reason, they have one of certain passions that they might not be that big that year, right? So that's why you have to apply to multiple schools. There is a luck involved, no question about it. Okay, so let me take us, before I get into the essays, I want to say a few more words about the big picture. Okay, so this is kind of a view from the perspective of the admissions office. So you want to um, have a theme. So you're going to have a lot. Students have done a lot, and how you express that. We're going to speak about that soon. But it's very important to kind of come up with a grand strategy. So this has to do with a theme. So the theme, what I mean by a theme is um, your passion. Students typically should focus on one, preferably one, but maybe two passions that they have that make them stand out. Again, it's about this um, diversity of the community, where each member of the community has something special. They're an artist, they're a musician, they're into community or activism, promoting healthcare, uh, astronomy, whatever it is, that has to be genuine and it has to be distinct. And that's something that will or should, in a successful essay, be a theme. I love this quote. This was from an admissions officer that I heard once, and it really stuck. It's a circle with a spike in it. So that means that the successful student will be well-rounded. They probably possibly participate in a sport, or they've done work in music. They're on the band, for example, but they have some very distinct passion. That's something that admissions officers look for, that distinctive quality. And the other thing, of course, is again back to this, I've circled back to this many times, is that's the fit. Were you able to thrive in their unique campus? Every campus is different, and it's a burden on the student to learn more about that, what the campus is about, what each college is distinct. Okay, let's talk about the personal statement. So this is probably the biggest part of the Common App, and it's probably the most challenging. The two biggest challenges for students in the Common App are this is the personal statement, and the other is the activity section, which we're going to talk about. That's you list up to 10 activities, extracurricular activities. So the personal statement or personal essay, it's 650 words. It shouldn't really not be less than 600 or in the high 500s, optimally. There are 7 prompts to choose from. The 7th is actually any prompt. So as far as the prompts go, it really, if students just write something, a topic, there's a good chance that one of the 6 prompts it will meet that prompt. But the prompts can also be used just to brainstorm about what to write about, which is often a big challenge. Like, what am I going to write about? I've never done this before. Okay, the other thing is knowing your audience. So this is actually very challenging, and it's not obvious, but it's definitely worth speaking about. That students are not used to this audience. So if this is not an English class, it's not a school newspaper article. So what the admissions office is looking for is something that we're going to talk about next. Let me talk about the prompts first. So this is the prompts. They seldom change. So it's of course available on the, as we speak. Of course, it's on the Common App, so you can see these. So I just copied and pasted them. Notice the last one is anything you want to write about. So these are these 7 that you get. Okay. So let me talk about some details about the personal essay. So this is the voice of the student. So you can write about an uncle, a cousin, a sibling, a mentor. That's fine, and those are very common subjects of the personal essay. However, the main character has to be the student. That's very important. So don't put too much into the other person. The other person may have influenced the student, but the central character must always be the student. And that makes sense because the admissions office is trying to learn about you. This is the main opportunity for the admissions office to learn about the student. And it does make a difference in the admissions. They do really. It's like one of the parts of the admissions that when you speak to admissions officers, they will often say this is the part that they have the most passion about. So they read admissions officers. I should mention this again, because you want to get into the space of the admissions office to succeed in this process. So you want to understand what they have to go through. So during the admissions season, a typical admissions officer will read 30 essays. But they'll read, actually, I should phrase it this way. They read 30 essay the entire essay, the entire, sorry, application package. So includes the essay. And they find that the essay is sort of the part they look forward to the most. It's the most interesting to them. Okay, so the question that I have posed up here is, what does the perfect essay look like? Well, there is no perfect essay. It's the personality of the student. Every student is different. And I've read so many different essays, and I've gone to websites. Some of the colleges actually share successful essays that students have written, and there are books available. And I've read so many, and there are none that are the same. It's very distinctive, and there is no one topic. I will say this, that there is a commonality in the most successful essays, and that is it's not about achievement. It's not about like any particular success. Those kind of somewhat surprisingly is not the successful formula. It's about the student, like their personality and what makes them tick, and sort of like letting their hair down and just being relaxed. And that part is very important because they see the achievement in the other parts of the application. They see of course, the transcript, they see the teacher recommendations, they see the scores, so they know that you're smart. They know what what your success are. This is the opportunity to have the other part of the student. Who are you really? And this is the most difficult challenge to express that. Okay, so let's talk about some of the details about what exactly makes an effective essay. One thing that I want to emphasize before I even get into the detail is, again, it's about what they want to see. So if you would ask me, like, what is the single most important quality that an admissions officer would want to see, or that the student would want to communicate, it's based on the fact that at the end of the day, it's a subjective decision whether the student is admitted or not. So it's very important that the student understands that. And if you do, I think we'll all agree that the essay should be something that makes you likable. That even as simple as that is, that's essential. So whatever you come up with, you have to be someone who the person reading it, the admissions officer, they want to root for you. So so whatever I say, that statement is primary. Okay, I want to repeat something I said earlier about knowing your audience. Okay, you can write many different essays. What may be a fantastic essay for a newspaper or an English class would not necessarily work for the college application, vice versa. So this is very important. This is like the first step. And since students have never done this before, it's very important for me to go through this process and for the students to do their own research and get help, because it's difficult, and you're at a disadvantage to a certain extent if you don't get help. And help can come in many forms. Of course, we provide that help with students, but there are many resources available for that as well. Okay, let's talk about some of the things that work in the essay. Okay, again, I'm putting in italics at the beginning something I just mentioned, that you want to charm the reader. You want them to root for you. So that's not easy to do, and students aren't used to that. But that's why it's not going to happen in the first time. It's one of the reasons why you want to get an early start, because you get to go through iterations, and the first time is not going to typically have that. So you want to, again, let me just go over each of the bullet points because they're worth mentioning slowly. Okay, it conveys a sense of who you are. This may be the most difficult thing of all. I've read many essays, and some hit the mark. You read the essay, it's as if you met the person. That would be one of the measures of success. But it's difficult to do. So many essays don't have that. When I work with students that don't, we often have to go back and try to get that quality from the student. Try to elicit that uniqueness, because it's there. It takes a certain maturity to do this, and 17 years old. So this is what I often think is the hardest part. The third bullet point engages the reader. Now, this from the first sentence, which has a compelling hook. Now, this is important from a marketing point of view, if I might use that term. The reason being that, again, they read 30 to 40 essays each day, so they can't, this is just human nature. Even though they try to focus, the reality is it's difficult to. So if you can hook the reader, hook meaning kind of the idea that you can like get them excited, engaged. It's the first paragraph that matters the most. No question about it. The first paragraph, because if you don't have a compelling first paragraph, you can lose the reader. And then they're not going to read whatever quality you have after that. So the first paragraph, in fact, the first sentence, the hook, is something that I really emphasize with my students. The ideal story has an arc. So part of the arc, if you could think about a movie that you really like, it's a story that grabs your interest. It has a rise and a flow, a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's in a natural progression. Typically, the end will circle back to the beginning. So it's a story. So you have to market yourself in the sense that the story, it can't just be like you did these wonderful things or you had this interesting relationship. You have to communicate it in a way that's compelling, but it's just a fact of life that makes it more memorable. That's the key. So that's another thing that I look for with the essays. Is it compelling? Is it charming? Does it tell a story? Is it compelling? It's compelling in the sense that is it something that will hold their interest? There can be a lot. Overcoming a challenge is a very common theme, and it's something that frequently works if done right. But at the end, it can't be too down. It has to be uplifting at the end of the day. So there's a lot of success coming from that, dealing with adversity, because adversity, the reason for that is, in my view, that adversity is something about overcoming adversity, which has a certain positive quality to it. If you just talk about how wonderful you are, or be boastful in any way, I think that boastfulness or vanity is, I consider, a third rail, because that is against charming. It's against charming, and it's not winning the favor of the reader. So that's a very important thing to avoid. So these are some adjectives that I thought were the best in communicating what I'm trying to say about the essay. So let me just read these. So distinctive, unique, special, individual, honest, insightful, congenial, original, different, varied, colorful, thoughtful, profound, meaningful, memorable. The most common cliche I've heard ever on essays is show, don't tell. And what that means is you don't want to say you're smart. You won't want to say that you're a good athlete. You don't want to say that you're a great musician. You want to talk about what you've done and let the reader come to their own conclusion. This is the reason why I say this is because it's much easier just to say you've done this, but it doesn't work. It's not effective. And also it has this idea of being boastful, which is the no-no. So you want to avoid that at all costs. Again, I'm emphasizing this over and over again because I can't say enough about it. Most important of all is make the reader want to root for you. That's the theme that informs every part of this essay. Okay, so let me continue with this. I mentioned a couple of these things. So again, modesty, being poignant, emotional. I mean, what makes a great story? I mean, think about a book that you really enjoy, or a film, or a TV show. It's often that it has something that you can relate to, right? There's a poignant, an emotional component to it. They're kind, funny, sincere, likable. Showing a vulnerable side, that's so important to winning over the reader. You can welcome the reader into your home, so you kind of like shape the essay. That's another very effective theme. Is you talk about something in your home, something that happened. I had one particular essay that I really liked was a student spoke about the relationship with their father, where they had some kind of like flood in their home in the basement, and how they worked together to fix it. So the way the essay was written was like you almost feel like you're in the home, and you feel the relationship, and through the relationship you get to understand who the student is. And I thought it was very effective. Okay, So these are some things I just mentioned that I don't want to discount the challenge to this. It's the voice of the student. Um, so this is where, you know, there are easy way outs of this, but there's a big danger to having the wrong kind of support, wrong kind of expert. So you do not want to drown the voice of the student out. So it's very important for the student to successfully navigate this challenge to who they are, because the people who read this do this for a living. So if it's not the voice of the student, the chances are they're going to probably be able to pick that up. And again, it's a very personal, subjective decision. So they can say whatever they want about it. They give you a grade. Actually, it is graded. It has to be graded because they have to compare so many students together. It's 1 to 5, 1 being the best. So that's very important to you know, the subjective part of it. Absolutely, it's worth the effort. This is about college, which is, I mean, such an important part of the process of career success and your emotional growth, and you want to be in the right place, and you want to get into the college where you'll be proud of it and thrive. So it's of course it's worth the effort. So this is just one part of it. I mean, think about all the time the students have spent in class. So this is just one um, part of this holistic process. You don't want to drop the ball on this one, okay? Okay, so things to avoid. I talked about not being boastful. It shouldn't be boring for all the obvious reasons. Um, you want to stay away from listing achievements. That's already in there. And again, achievements are kind of like this third rail. This is supposed to be like separate from the essay. You think about the personal statement as a standalone. It's doing something that no other part of the application touches, which is just like you're just talking about yourself. You are the central character. The student must be the central character. I talked about that. Um, and might not work the first time. So the topics that have succeeded have covered every possible topic that you can imagine. So walking the pet dog, read a great essay uh, that a student walks their dog regularly at night, and he would see the stars, and it talked about his passion for astronomy. It was just very well written. A relationship with a brother, a family dinner conversations, fishing, building a bookcase. These are mundane things. So it's not the specific topic that you're going to be judged on. It's what the topic does as a vehicle for this such an important challenge of revealing who you are. Okay, let me talk about the sentence structure, the essay structure, like what makes this essay effective. Um, so it has a hook. So again, it's very important in the reality of college admissions. It's very important to grab the reader's attention. I have an essay. I have a slide on the hook in a moment. That's probably the most important part of the essay. The compelling story. We talked about the arc. Okay, let me talk about the hook right now. So there's this it's basically a hook is usually everyone, it's kind of has a different for every different person, but I personally like a very short clip sentence. You grab their attention right away. So the first few words have an outsized influence. Here's just a couple of examples of the so many. I always love to laugh. So right away, it's a short sentence, and it's triggering in the reader. Like, what is this all about? Love to laugh. That sounds funny. It sounds fun. It sounds warm. It sounds interesting. It sounds like it makes the reader want to learn more. And this student spoke about this whole experience building up to stand-up comedy. So a student I had this year, he's actually got admitted ED2 to Johns Hopkins. Some of my fondest memories include humor, sometimes even intentionally. They were the usual late nights spent joking with my friends on group calls, but it may have been the impressions made from stand-up comedy specials that inspired me to try to develop my own craft of humor. Another student wrote, the students that went to Penn. How could I be so close to someone when I live so far away? So that right away, think about that sentence. That's the hook. The hook is the first sentence. So now it's like a mystery. It's a question. I like that too. Posing the first sentence, the hook, as a question, because in, just naturally someone's going to try to answer the question. When you ask a question, the instinct is to respond to it. That response is engaging because it makes the reader think. That's doing its job. It's drawing the reader in, which is what you want to do. I have in the list of links. I have a bunch of links that I'm going to share with you. I have all this key pieces here I'm going to share with you. This is just an example of the beginning of a personal statement. I kept a firm grip on the rainbow trout as I removed the lure from its lip. So that's the hook. So it's like, oh, this is interesting. It's unusual. First of all, it's talking about fishing, which is not a typical topic. And it's also something that's action. There's action here. So the reader is transported into thinking, oh, they're by a river or a stream. Pardon me, they're by a stream, and that's an effective vehicle to grab their attention. And then there's a story about that in a relationship with a man who helped him learn about fishing. So it was very revealing. This essay I actually have in the links, so you'll see that the whole essay. It's quite good. These references I also have. So many of the websites have useful tips. So when you go to find out about the essay or the supplemental essays, all that information is on the Common App. However, I actually recommend getting the information from the websites because a lot of the college websites, each individual one will talk about the essay and often throw in some tips. And the tips are interesting because yes, there's a universality to some of the tips, but each school is different. So you're learning about each college, and in the process of learning about what they emphasize and what they want to see, you're also learning about the college itself. I found that fascinating because I read all this stuff, part of my responsibilities as a college advisor. So I'm learning about every single college all the time, and it's quite revealing. So that's one of the main channels which I recommend that students use is the website itself. Let me show you something actually. So I wanted to share with you a couple of things. So this is Hamilton College, which is a great liberal arts school in upstate New York, near Utica, New York. It's a fantastic school, absolutely gorgeous campus. Again, I'm a big proponent of, I've mentioned this before about liberal arts colleges. They often get overlooked, but this is something that students should definitely, some of these schools should be looked into. But this is just from their admissions pages. And they talk about their insights. Of course, there's a lot of universality to it. But they're all helpful. They're all helpful to go that. His is from Yale. So Yale, once you're on the admissions page, the admissions page, there's advice to candidates. I'll click it up here. And there's just a bunch of information that's typically pretty useful. And putting together the application, when you click on that, the second choice you get here. So this is Yale, and it's all their own perspective. I mean, I wouldn't take anything as the gospel, but it's useful. So they talk about the essays here. Lens to which you view your own topic is far more important than the specific topic itself. That's what I was talking about. So the topic itself is not as important as think of it as a vehicle in order to communicate who the student is, what makes them tick, what's their personality. They talk about the activities section. It's just filled with stuff, interviews, which I'll touch on at the end, and recommendations. I'm also going to mention that stuff. So I'm going to cover all of that stuff. Let me go back to this. I mentioned that. And just while I'm on this part here, so again, when you're on the Common App, commonapp.org, parents Students know what to do. You just obviously click there. Parents do the same thing. They click first year student, and you can create account. And you'd click that when you log in. And so the Common App, just very quickly, just you all can see this here. So the Common App, just to see that. So the writing section. So the Common App is the middle tab, the Common App tab in the center is what's why they call it the Common App. This is common to all the applications. So these are I copied and pasted that. These are and we talked about the activities also. If you go to the dashboard, you can actually see some of the this is where the supplementals are, because each school has different supplementals. So this is some examples here. Again, you can go to, for example, Carnegie Mellon. If you went to Carnegie Mellon, which I did, you just log in here. They talk about the essays. So Carnegie Mellon actually has one of the more challenging supplements, because it's typically a typical college will have one supplement of 300 words, say. Carnegie Mellon has 3 of 300 words, just as an example, because it runs the gamut and what you can expect. I think I skipped ahead here. I talked about those. Okay, so just take a short break. If there's questions, I think there were some chat questions. Let me just see what's up here. MD is asking, can you please talk about what the culture vibe of the top schools is, if you were to summarize it in a few words? Okay, yes. So it's actually somewhat difficult to express. So what I often say is this is actually interesting from my own experience and from students that I've worked with. When you visit a school, when you visit a campus, it's kind of surprising to me, but I think within the first hour you can tell whether this is right for you. That's the vibe. So the vibe is sort of like it's kind of like a feeling of the personality, the student body, the quality of the school, the campus. There's a certain kind of a quality that each makes each student, each university unique. And that's something that is difficult to describe. But it's so important to get that, because it's a decision. You could be there for 4 years. You don't want to make a mistake. Yes, you can transfer, but it's not a pleasant process. So it's so important to do your homework now before you go in. You want to over to school that you're going to love. Yeah, the recording. I'm going to ask Francis should be able to share this recording with parents, so they should send out a link. Christina, lots of students get professional help. Writing essays is obvious to a reader when an essay is heavily edited. That's a very good question. The answer to that is, if you have someone who's really good at what they do with essays, the answer is no, because that person will do what they can to elicit the voice of the student and shape that voice to make it effective, do the editing. If they have problems with the eliciting of that voice, that's what they should be good at, trying to do that challenging job of communicating that. And no, you don't want to be heavy-handed. You want it to be very natural. So too much editing is not good. So there's a fine line between what a successful essay is with too much help and too little help. So what was the most unique essay you've ever read? And the answer is they're basically all the successful ones are unique. That's one of the defining characteristics of a unique essay. And I have on the shared documents, I have a bunch of essays that I've included that all satisfy that uniqueness. So everyone is unique. Okay, let me move on to the supplemental essays. Okay. So very typically, you could have one, maybe two, typically the 200, 300 words. Many colleges actually they'll have like one 300-word essay, and they'll have a bunch of very short ones, which could be 25 words or so, like little questions like what's your favorite meal to make? Um, what person is most, what book have you read that influenced you the most, or film? Something like that. This would be very, very short. I think Yale has a list, you're listing like just 10 books, films, essays, TV that most influenced you. That's a question. But the most common is the YS essay. That's the single most common essay, and it's one of the reasons why it is because now with the Common App, students are tempted to apply to a lot of colleges, and this kind of slows it down because you have to actually, it forces the student to think about if this school is right for them. Because to write a successful YS essay, you really have to understand the school. And then as you do that process, you reflect and say, well, maybe the school isn't right for me. Okay, so when you write the YS essay, the way I say it to students is you don't want to think about what the school can do for you. You want to turn it around and say what the student can do for the college. How will you enhance the college? So the thing that I tell my students to avoid is you go to the website, the college's website, and you look at all the what they offer. Oh, they have this great club, or they have this great course, or there's this great professor, and I want to be in that. That would be a mistake. They know what they have. They want to see what you do, what you are. This is true for all the essays, not just the YS essay, but you're always going to emphasize what you as a student can do to enhance the college campus. And the way you do that is you don't speculate. You try as much as you can to connect things that you've done, that you've already accomplished, whether it's a club, a team, a leadership position in the community, a church or synagogue, or whatever it is, what you've done there, how will that, you're going to talk about that connection, that how will you transform that into something that will make the college of your choice a better place. So that starts with, again, the theme I was saying in the very beginning. The successful essay have a common theme. So your theme, whether it's music or astronomy or whatever, that should be a big part of the YS essay. Now, not every school has supplemental essays. Notably, the SUNYs don't, except for Stony Brook Honors. Many private colleges surprisingly don't. The vast majority do, but these are notable. The ones I have here, down here, are notable that do not. Northeastern, Case Western, that was one of my favorite colleges, Case Western, Middlebury, Wesleyan, Skidmore, those are liberal arts colleges, they do not. Okay. Okay, so let's again talk about the YS since it's the most common essay. It measures interest level. So again, it's measuring interest level because you've talking about that school. Again, reflecting about what the best fit. So it forces the student to think about this. Does this school really fit yourself? And take that opportunity, but you should learn, you should be doing that anyway. You shouldn't be applying to schools because of the name or because you want to you see if even if you're a long shot, you'll get in. That's not a good strategy. In fact, many of the private high schools actually limit the number of colleges you can apply to 10 or 12 because it's forcing the student to think about it. I would make a claim that it would be difficult for any student to find more than 10 colleges where they really are a fit. I'd rather the student to do that homework before they apply than after. So how do you learn about the school? How are you going to find out whether it's the right fit? Well, the visiting the campus is the most important thing you can do. And when you do visit the campus, since you're there, the most important thing is meeting students. I know that's not part of the college tour, but for students, if you can somehow muster the courage, you'll see students. Keep in mind, every student that's in the college was in the shoes that you're in now, which is a prospective student. So if you could just talk to them, most of them would just be happy to share if they're not rushing to a class. Um, and also, by the way, one of the insights that I share, one of the lesser known opportunities is visiting a class. You can go to the admissions office, and they don't publicize this, but most will allow you to sit in a class. They'll give you a list. That's like, to me, one of the best things. You can speak to a student when you're there, but you're actually seeing students interact. This is a great opportunity to learn about it. The college websites, I talked about that. The student newspaper tells you what's going on, especially with the editorials. Many colleges post student blogs. So for first-year students, for prospective students. So it's designed for that. So telling you what's going on, they're very revealing. These students are paid to do that. So that's the purpose of it. My two favorite websites for college discussions is College Confidential and College Vine. Let me give you an example of what works. These are kind of like insights about the YSSA. So this is taken from the University of Michigan, but this applies to any college. So every school has their own kind of jargon. And by using it, if you use it with confidence, and you can use it with confidence by reading a lot about the school, a great way to do that is also through my favorite book, The Fifth Guide to College, The Fifth Guide, which is only in hard bound book. I mean, hard copy book. It's not online. But anyway, like their expressions, go blue, maize and blue, the diag, the big house. So if you can kind of sprinkle these in the right way, it can go a long way, because they want this, the admissions officer reading this wants to know that you'd be happy there, because again, it's about fit. So if you can confidently use these jargon, it's a one way that I'm feeling comfortable with you. Can the admissions officer see that student walking down the hall in a random classroom building? Would that person fit in? Because the worst thing that can happen is it's not a good fit, and they have to transfer. They're not happy, and they want to be assured that this is right for you. So how do you do that? You got to research, like I mentioned, you have to research it. I mentioned these already. This is actually a copy thing. The other thing is, I talked about this already, visit the school website. There's so much information on the websites. I mentioned these. I have this also in the docs at the end that I'll give you. So here's some essays. This student was a student of mine who is actually at Yale now. This is one of the Yale essays. So reflect on something that has given you great satisfaction. Why has it been important to you? So this is revealing, because again, the most important takeaway from reading any essay, whether it's a personal statement or a supplemental, is revealing who you are. It's like trying to be transported into that student's life. And this essay works. Bed of eggplant and tossed and roasted red bell peppers, topped with crunchy chickpeas, purple onions, cucumbers, and the most delicious lemon tahini dressing. Nothing on this planet is better than my mother's homemade ceviche on a weekend afternoon. Great opening. Unusual, different, colorful, and revealing. I love this one too. There's another student. They start off with the standard way of talking about chess moves. It's so unique and revealing. So a student so this is what I was saying about show don't tell. So you don't have to say I love chess. That would be the tell. I mean the show. The tell is what the student is doing. They're just describing something. I just thought this was very clever. They talk about the first 5 moves. And it's a window into the student and their personality. Very effective. Resumes. A lot of students ask this question: should I submit a resume? So I want to just talk about this. Generally speaking, it is always an option. It's in the very end of the Common App part. There's the option to upload it. Of course, you can always upload it on the applicant portal. Once you apply, you get a password to each college's applicant portal. In short, I'm against the resume personally, because it's often redundant, and you also have to understand, and many of the colleges say that. So many of the colleges, when you ask that question, they're very reluctant to recommend it, because it's extra work. These people are very busy. So if you submit a resume which is mostly redundant in the sense that it's covered in your 10 activities, it kind of like may put them off a little bit. And again, it's a subjective decision. So they think that you're overdoing it, being heavy-handed. So I don't generally recommend it. However, if you have so many activities or it's so unusual, there are cases where you could, and every student has a different passion. So that might be different as well. The interview. So many colleges don't offer an interview. The pendulum is swinging actually now. It used to be like 5-6 years ago before COVID, where interviews were really down. There were very few schools that used them. But now the pendulum is swinging. Many colleges, including many of the Ivies, now require it. Technically, it's optional, but they're evaluative. So if you offered an interview and not every student is offered, that doesn't mean they don't like you. It's just there's limited resources, so they have their own algorithm for choosing students, and it's not just really on strength of the application. But you obviously can't turn it down if you offer it. Generally speaking, for the interview, there are exceptions like the University of Rochester, but the vast majority of colleges, you do not set up the time for the interview. They will reach out to the student about the interview. It's almost on Zoom. It's almost always with an alumnus. Of course, before the interview, you better learn all about the college, show that you have interest in it. If you ask me about the interview, it's the single most important thing is somehow to make it into a natural conversation. It shouldn't be like I did this or I did that. Try to avoid questions. It's just kind of going to be a natural flow, which is difficult to do. So if you're stiff or uncomfortable, try to practice this, think about it, be relaxed. Of course, a thank you note is very important. There's no preparation for it. You're just going to talk. There's no resume. Typically, the alumnus is not allowed to see the file, so they know nothing about you. Mock interviews would be a good way to start. Of course, Kweller Prep, if you choose to go with us, we will help you with this process. It does matter. A lot of the schools now really do count them, those who do offer them. But good questions to ask or research that are difficult to find so the best questions that you want to ask or should be ingredients in the conversation are not things that you can find online. Like, what's a typical weekend like? Do many students go away on weekends? That's not something you can really find. That's something that the alumnus interviewer would know. The dorm life. Most people go out? Do they tend to leave campus? How accessible are the faculty? Those are very revealing. So very quick, I'm not going to spend much time on this slide, but the deadlines, it's very important to keep this in mind. You don't want to ever put yourself in a position I'm not saying early decision is something that every student should do because it's binding. So you don't want to make a mistake with that, but you don't want to not do early decision because you're not ready. So you want to put yourself in a position where your application is done by November 1. Well, that's not that long into the future. So by middle of October, you should be really wrapping things up. In addition to which, I will say this: if you're applying to the publics, it's particularly these flagship publics out of state, like Maryland, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, UVA. Those schools, early action, it puts you at an advantage. So you have to apply, really, if you want to get in, you have to apply early. Okay, so saying, well, there's so much information here. So this is an example of a student that I work with. So look, this is how we organize. Anyone can do this. So you list the schools, you kind of do the supplements because you get lost in this process. What I like to do is at the deadline, I kind of color code it. So as the deadline's looming, I turn it to red, or I suggest turning it to red. So you're kind of on top of it. The deadline is very strict. So the deadline for the application is strict. That includes a supplement. Usually have 10 days after the deadline for the letters of recommendation and the transcript to be sent, because you don't control that. But you want to keep tabs on that through Naviance to make sure it's been sent, because you can check. You can absolutely check. When you log into Naviance, which every school has in New York City, the DOE, the Department of Education, they all subscribe to that. So your students should have access to that. The interview, you can see I have letters of recommendation. I have the sheet included at the end. So this is going to be a template that you can use if you choose to. Let me talk about letters of recommendation. We're running out of time. So most of the elite colleges require 2 letters. Some require 1. Most require 2. It should be ideally, it doesn't have to be, but ideally you'd have 1 from a STEM subject, 1 from a humanities or foreign language. As far as which year, junior year is best, senior year is second best. Recency is important. Early decision, you don't want to use a senior year teacher because you wouldn't have had them long enough to be a basis for evaluation. But sophomore year would be a no-no. So if you did sophomore year, that would raise red flags. So I would recommend against that. When do you ask? It should be spring term. The spring term of junior year. If you put it off too long, many teachers have a policy which they don't necessarily announce, which they won't do it senior year. So talk to your teacher in advance. And of course, the teacher should be someone who would give you a positive recommendation. You can ask them, don't pin it on them in the sense that, you're demanding it. Phrase it in a way that it gives them an out, an easy out. Would you feel comfortable? I mean, how do you feel about a letter of recommendation? And also when you ask for the letter, hand them a sheet of paper that lists what you did, and also it's a reminder for them. If they're busy, when they have the physical paper, they can see it and remind them to write it. But on that sheet, talk about some of your experiences in class and why you enjoyed the class, why you enjoyed the teacher. That's something. It's very important. The letters of recommendation, I cannot underestimate how important it is, because it's an objective view of how you are in the classroom as a person. It is hugely important. So you want to make those letters count. We have that already. Okay, so the upcoming webinars, I talked about that. Okay, the financial aid webinar, I just want to promote this. So it's June 5th, so it's not for a while. Mark your calendars. It's going to be cover soup to nuts, everything about the financial aid application, CSS and FAFSA, strategies to apply, how colleges decide. I'll talk about the 529 plan, plus loans, every element to this, and also strategies and how financial aid works. It's really, really good. Let me share this document so I don't forget. I'm going to send it to you guys right now. So everyone should get this now. Let me get the questions. So there are a couple of questions. But very quickly, MD is asking, are there institutions that require a math recommendation and not a science one for the STEM? Not that I know of, no. But if you are applying to an engineering or CS as a major, especially engineering, they could definitely want to see a STEM of the two. They don't specifically demand that, but you have to have at least one STEM. You could even do two STEMs, which I'm not a big fan of, but for engineering, absolutely two STEMs would be very acceptable. But at least one would be a STEM. There's no math over science. I don't see that, no. That's it. Those are the only questions. So please ask any questions. Another question is it okay to get a recommendation from AP Econ? It's a one semester class. Yes, the answer is yes. Absolutely. That would be appropriate. A one semester class, especially in AP. Yes, that would be appropriate. All juniors teachers are one semester, so the alternative would be a sophomore recommendation. So the sophomore recommendation to me is really a third rail. In every way, shape, or form, if you can avoid it, don't do the sophomore. So don't forget, you still have senior year. So we'll have 5 or 6 new classes. So that would be an opportunity for senior year definitely over sophomore year. Because if you do sophomore year, first of all, there's the recency issue. And the other issue is if you do sophomore year, the question would become, what happened? Why no junior or senior year? So that's kind of like would be sort of something that would not be in your best interest if you could avoid it. Yeah, most students are not getting repeat teachers, and Anish is asking that question. How would I approach teachers for letters? So when you approach a teacher for letters, you would ask, give them the opportunity to say no, because you don't want them to give a bad letter. Would they want to write a positive letter? And again, hand them a physical sheet of paper with describing some of your experiences and why the class meant a lot to them, because it'll include that. So give them some nice quotes that you want in there. Yes, you should ask during spring term. Yes, if you love a teacher and the teacher probably will really like you and you've contributed a lot. I mean, you have to know that only the student will know this, but like, where do you feel most comfortable? Yes. That's very important. I can't emphasize that enough. So I hope this was useful. I'm not going to do the next few ones, but I'm going to hopefully see you back in June. What was it, June? that Thursday, the first Thursday in June for the financial aid. So thanks for being here. And we didn't have time to do the activity. I did cover the activities, I think, in the second webinar. So I just kind of was going to repeat it anyway if I had time, but I didn't have any time to do that. So anyway, hope this was useful, and see you next week. There'll be another great webinar by a former student who will talk about their own personal experiences from the perspective of a student. So take care, everybody.